All About Relationships is an engaging, lighthearted, and practical show designed to help people improve their relationships in meaningful ways. Hosted by Dr. Don Allen, a certified Gottman therapist, as well as an advanced trainer for the Institute. He is also certified in emotion-focused therapy. With over 40 years of experience in the field of psychotherapy, Dr. Allen is here to provide expert guidance on strengthening marriages, parent-child relationships, friendships, and more. Through insightful discussions, audience call-ins, and guest experts, viewers receive real-world strategies to enhance intimacy, communication, and overall relationship satisfaction. So now, please welcome the host of All About Relationships, Dr. Don Allen.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Dr. Don Allen. This is All About Relationships, working towards ideal marriage and loving, lasting relationships. Today, as promised, our show is about Valentine's Day and rituals of connection. I kind of alluded to it last week, but I'll say it again. I'm doing this a week in advance. If you notice, Valentine's Day is a week from Saturday, not this Saturday. And I'm doing that on purpose because one of the things I want to do is to take advantage of the opportunity for all of you to really go out and have a very good Valentine's Day. Most of us might talk about, hey, we've had good ones and not so good ones. And one of the things I want to talk about is common pitfalls that people can fall into when they're trying to have a wonderful Valentine's Day. They're intending to have a wonderful Valentine's Day, but something goes wrong. So we're going to talk about some of the things that go wrong. Some of the mailbag questions I thought was very good, so I put some of the better ones on there. So we're just going to talk about those types of things. So I was kind of thinking, okay, so if I'm going to talk about Valentine's Day, what kind of things should I talk about? Well, remember first, what have I done for my relationship today? Well, guess what? You're doing this. And further, I'm going to give you some really practical tips to set you up for success next week. One of the things I'm going to do next week, because we're close to Valentine's Day, is I'm going to talk about the secrets of good sex. You know, a lot of times people kind of see Valentine's Day and maybe sex going hand in hand. So, you know, one of the things I thought I would do is set the stage this week, and then next week talk about what goes in to a good, loving, and satisfying sexual relationship before you head into Valentine's Day. So please stay tuned for that one. So that's what I'm going to do. We're gonna look at that, and we're gonna have fun, imagining Valentine's Day and looking at those kind of questions. Now, my thoughtful questions for the day, and I like to put these in here because I usually talk about it in the third segment, but I like these today. You know, what has Valentine's Day taught us about love, connection, and intimacy throughout the entire year, right? So what are we going to look at with Valentine's Day? Because really, one of the things we ought to do is use Valentine's Day as a platform to have a great ongoing connection and relationship in so many ways. This is just a good connector. Okay. So, you know, what is the dance of Valentine's Day really about in your mind and in the mind of your partner? You know, what do they imagine a good Valentine's Day is? What do you imagine a good Valentine's Day is? You know, what about past experiences? All that stuff kind of blends in to what we need to talk about today, right? So we're going to have fun with that. Why is the preparation for Valentine's Day as important, if not more important, than the day itself? Okay, we need to be planning ahead. We can't just say, okay, it's Valentine's Day, what are we going to do? We want to have an idea, a template, a format that we can work with to really celebrate our partner and be celebrated on Valentine's Day. Okay, so when Valentine's Day doesn't go as well as one of you had hoped, where did the disconnect happen? Well, we're going to slow it down and maybe offer some good clues about common pitfalls and then maybe what to do with it. So, what I thought I would do is I would talk a little bit about Valentine's Day in general. Now, remember, with my show, I like to think of, is this true 2,000 years ago? And will it be true 2,000 years from now? Because if I do that, I don't have to worry about all those kind of what's in the news, kind of popular trending things that we're seeing on television and stuff. one thing I always mention, if it's classic, it's probably going to be timeless. Think of your favorite classic television shows or your favorite kind of music. Some of that stuff just never goes to being old. And that's one of the things we want to hope is Valentine's Day is a classic for you, just like that. So what I thought I would do is just to kind of have fun with it is I went and I didn't take a lot of time with this and I'm not an expert on it. So I'm kind of taking folks' words for it. So please understand, normally if I was really going to do research, I would take all of the information I hear, look at the footnotes and go chase them and make sure I read what was cited rather than take somebody else's word for it. Really not doing that today. But anyway, I think we can take some liberties with that, and we can trust maybe some sources. And I just thought it'd be interesting to look at the history of Valentine's Day. Okay, so what do we know about February, and why has it long been celebrated as a month of romance? So what I did was I looked at the History Channel because I like the History Channel, and a lot of their stuff is really good. So I kind of trust them. But what did they talk about according to Valentine's Day? What's the history? Okay. So a couple things they point out. St. Valentine's Day, as we know it today, contains vestiges or historical antecedents from both Christian and ancient Roman traditions. This goes back. So when I say, is it relevant 2,000 years ago? Ta-da! All right. So one thing we do know, according to the History Channel, is the Catholic Church recognizes at least 3 different saints named Valentines, all of whom were martyred. So being a Valentine isn't necessarily good for your longevity or health, apparently. Okay. So what they say is Emperor Claudius II decided that single men made better soldiers than soldiers with wives and families. So what he did was he outlawed marriages for young men. St. Valentine realized the injustice of this decree and defied Claudius and continued to marry couples in secret. Okay. What happened with that is old Claudius found out about it and killed him. Another one, and again, this is somewhat of lore. I don't know exactly how factual this is. But another one said St. Valentine was really of Terni, Italy. He was a bishop, right? And they argue he's the true namesake for the holiday. He too was beheaded during Claudius's second reign for refusing to renounce his faith and stop converting new followers, right? So one of the things, if you're named Valentine and you're doing this, you need to have your head on a swivel or you won't have your head at all. Okay, so be careful with that. Others believe that Valentine's is celebrated in the middle of the February to commemorate the anniversary of these people's death around 270 AD. So again, 2,000 years ago. So there you are. This thing goes way back. So people have been looking at Valentine's Day and romance clear back to those times. Other people claim that the Christian church may have decided to place St. Valentine's feast day in the middle of February in order to Christianize the pagan celebration of Lupercalia. Lupercalia. I had to practice that. Well, what was Lupercalia? Sounds like a disease. It wasn't. Lupercalia was a fertility festival dedicated to Faunus, the Roman god of architecture. So one of the things we're noticing is February kind of has been a precursor to spring, and with spring, fertility. So it sounds like it was kind of coordinated around there. The other thing too is it wasn't unusual to Christianize holidays, as I understand it, and I could be completely wrong, but the whole idea of celebrating Christmas where it was really that it coincided with Roman celebration of the solstice and the sun returning back because it looked like it was going to fall off the earth. And then 4 days after the solstice, they realized it was coming back. So they celebrated. So the Christians were saying, well, we're just celebrating that when they were really celebrating Christianity. So that's not an unusual way of not getting beheaded, apparently. So let's kick up. During the Middle Ages, a common belief across France and England was held that February 14 was the beginning of the birds' mating season. That was in 1375. Okay, so Valentine's Day greetings are reported to be popular as far back as the Middle Ages through written valentines, and that did not begin to appear till after 1400. So they do have records, apparently, of people writing valentines, clear back then. Okay, let me look at my time. All right, we're doing good. So, in addition, in the United States, it expanded to Canada, Mexico, the United Kingdom, France, and Australia. In Great Britain, Valentine's Day began to be popularly celebrated around the 1600s. Okay, well, let's kick up even farther. By the middle of the 18th century, it was common for friends and lovers of all social classes, right? Not just aristocracy, to exchange small tokens of affection or handwritten notes. In the Gottman vernacular, that would be bids for connections, recognizing love maps, recognizing the higher meaning, and making each other's dreams come true. So all of those on the relationship house can really, really work. We'll show you that a house sometime. Okay. By the 1900s, printed cards began to replace written letters due to improvements in printing technology. So by 1900, we could really make things get around, right? So people started just looking for those and having them pre-made, and people started making money about it. So ready-made cards were an easy way for people to express, um, their emotions at the time. So that was good because at the time, direct expression of one's feelings were discouraged. Keeping our feelings to ourselves and being proper. So we can't really say, "Gee, I like you." That might be dangerous or risky. So here, have a card. Um, Cheaper postage rates also contributed to the Valentine's Day greetings, right? And like I said, handmade Valentines as early as 1700. So people were writing their own, which, we all could do. You could make your own Valentine's Day card. You don't have to go spend $7 for it. In the 1840s, selling the first mass produced Valentines occurred in America. Today, according to Hallmark, 145 million Valentine's Day cards are sent each year, and second only to Christmas, right? So it's funny, but we've heard that cliche, "Gee, this is a Hallmark holiday." Well, that kind of means we have to go out and spend money and do commercial stuff. Not necessarily, but that's what we talk about. One thing I talk about is you can have Valentine's Day, but you can make your own informal Valentine's Day just for you guys. Matter of fact, some people do celebrate their anniversaries, or when they're really closely in love and stuff, they do their monthly anniversaries. Well, nobody else does. That's just your personal holiday. You can extend it. Valentine's Day is just a nice way to stop in the middle of winter and really, really do that. Okay. So, one thing about all of this is that we're going to talk about, how to really do this in a successful way. But I like the fact that all of us are carrying on a tradition that's over 2,000 years old. Way to go, guys. This is really a cool thing to keep going. The other thing I really think, and I know people are all over. Some people, like where I live, today is going to be 70. This weekend it's going to be 80. That's not a really cold day. But boy, when I lived in New York and Baltimore and Ohio, it got really cold. In fact, I was talking to my friends in Ohio, and guess what? They have about a foot of frozen snow because it's too cold to melt. So those kind of times when it's dark and stuff can really help us cuddle and hunker down together in a warm house. So it is kind of a nice time to slow down, especially when not a lot's going on. We're already done with the holiday season of Christmas and New Year's and Martin Luther King Day. So wow, this is kind of a neat thing in the middle of the February to kind of tide us over before we start really hitting March and some of the major holidays in celebration of spring then. So you know what? Why don't we just go ahead and take all this information, go to break, and then come back and let's look at the mailbag and start kind of funneling down to kind of how we can celebrate Valentine's Day, do it again one more year, and really, do it in a way that's better than we have in the past. So I'll give you some funny anecdotals along the way, and we'll catch you in about a minute. Take care.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a
creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorick has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
All right, we're back. So one of the things I always like to do is to go ahead and show some information. If you'd like to contact me, if you'd like to let me know if you like the show or you'd like to let me know what I could do more of, why don't we just do that? And, in honor of that, my cat just came in. So I'm not usually expecting that. But look over that and see what you can do about maybe giving me some good feedback. I would love that. So what we're going to do now is bridge a little bit. We're going to talk about what I call the mailbag and just showing some information that people have written in and asking me to talk about. So the first thing I do want to talk about that is a good question, because one of the questions I got was historically on Valentine's Day, we have different ideas of what Valentine's Day would be like. So this person is noticing that her person and that person have different ideas, and it often goes into conflict. Do you have any idea how to help with that? Okay. Well, one of the things you're noticing is competing information. You're noticing that my fantasy or my imagining of Valentine's Day is different than what my partner's is. Now, you have to be careful with that for a couple reasons. Sometimes one of the things that can happen with people is that not only do they have an opinion of it, but it could be something they really stand on. Okay, it could be something that they really feel like if they act on it, it sells them out. So you have to forgive me. I have a cat in here. I don't know how the door got open, but I'm laughing pretty good. Tell you what, at the end of the show, I'll show you my cat. But for example, let's say I'm a person who really believes that Valentine's Day is a Hallmark holiday and they're really charging too much for roses, and by golly, I'll never buy them because they're really ripping me off. The other person really, really, really likes flowers on Valentine's Day. Well, you're not just talking about whether to give flowers, you're talking about a personal issue related to the holiday. That requires a discussion, right? That requires, people sitting down and really talking about what their needs and wants are. As I get into my how to fix this, I will talk about ways to kind of go towards a win-win on that. I have a funny anecdotal. Hopefully I'll get a chance to tell you. So one thing you want to do is you need to slow that down and have a conversation about, what it means to me to spend money for flowers and what it means to me to really get flowers, right? Not as a right or a wrong, not as a competition, right? But as a way to really understand each other. So the next question, often I feel like Valentine's Day is walking in a minefield. Well, we just talked about that. If I don't do it right, I'm going to catch it. How do I make Valentine's Day feel like we're together? So when you hear, for example, you don't have to buy me anything for Valentine's Day, I don't care. I'll bet it's a trap. I'll bet that person isn't saying that. So if you take them literally and you don't do it, it can really probably cause some feelings of rejection and sadness. So, what you want to be able to do is to really kind of understand your partner and know what they really want, even if they said that. Okay. So, we're going to talk about how to communicate that better. Next, what's a realistic way to handle mismatched expectations? Well, we have a theme now, don't we? Mismatched expectation. That's kind of what I said at the first when we talked about flowers and costs versus getting them. One of us wants a big romance Valentine's Day, and it feels like the other person just sees it as an opportunity to have sex. Well, that's why next week I'm going to talk about the secrets of good sex. Because honestly, this is something that can happen with couples that really kind of reduces this idea of the celebration of sex, right? Because if sex feels more like it's mechanics versus romance, it requires conversation, right? So we need to talk about that. Remember, holidays are intensifiers. So whatever we feel more of one way or the other. So if we feel good, it's even better. If we feel bad, it can be even worse. All right. So very important. We're going to talk about that next week. And that's why I'm devoted my show to it, because honestly, sometimes I hear that it kind of goes to a struggle like this. Next one. How can we create a memorable Valentine's Day without spending a lot of money? Now, let's get to the first one again. The first one is I don't want to spend a lot of money on roses. All right. But this is a little different. A belief system could be, hey, we're on a budget. I don't care if it's Valentine's Day, we need to stay to the budget. Some people might say, hey, it's Valentine's Day. I want to spend a little bit more and celebrate us. Right. So that's make each other's dreams come true and shared meaning, but they're colliding. Right. So one of the things I mentioned earlier, kind of on purpose, was that, some people want to go out and buy a $7 card and say, hey, this is great. And you can sign it, and that's really cool. But that's somebody else's humor that you thought was funny, and you thought your partner might think it's funny, so you share it. We do that a lot. I particularly like to do that with birthday cards, and I have a lot of birthdays with friends around this time of year. So I always go out of my way to kind of try to find something they think would be funny, right? Let's say some of my friends are a lot older than I am and wouldn't necessarily get the humor. Well, that might have a flowery card with thinking of you and you're wonderful with big flowers on it, and just, really connecting in a way to say how you are special to me. That's good too. But you notice how I pick the card based on what I think my person needs and wants and would enjoy. Right. So there's nothing wrong with getting a preset card. If you're creative, make your own. Right. Kids are wonderful for this. They do it naturally. How many times, you go over and they drew you a picture, or they drew you a picture of you, right? And it's not a Picasso, but you'd rather have that over the Picasso because, well, it's that special and unique, and it's coming from the heart of your grandchild or somebody very, very small, but just thinks you are the most wonderful person on earth, which gets back to that concept of unconditional love. At the end of my show today, I'm going to give a special shout out. And I'm going to talk about unconditional love and bids for connection in that relationship house. So I want you to stay tuned because I think it's very important. And I'm putting it in the show because, I think that's a really important thing to always keep in mind in relationships. Everybody needs to feel like they're loved because of who they are, not because of what they do or what they believe in or how they believe in it. It's you're wonderful because I can't get anybody else but you, and I'm going to celebrate that. So that's a really, really important thing to keep in mind. So how to not spend a lot of money. Well, you guys can get together and talk about what you both have liked as a tradition that doesn't cost a lot. A lot of people can look back on, or if they're in that position, know what it's like to be in that first year of marriage and not necessarily have a lot of money. Okay, well, that's fine, but you can do a lot of things at home. You can do a lot of things special that doesn't involve, spending a ton of money. When people might have a little bit more to spend and stuff like that, they might, go ahead and go out for dinner, go to a nice place, go to some place that it's your place, it's special because of you two. All of those things can be in the equation. But what happens if you got that all planned and you got 10 feet of snow? Well, now we're back to maybe making a homemade pizza and making your own cards and doing little things that are really, really nice for your partner, and then remembering them. So even when you can't go out, you can still do some of those fun things. Doesn't cost you. So we can really do that, but it requires that conversation, right? It requires the conversation. So I'm looking at my time, and we have a little bit more time on this segment. So I set the stage. So I'm actually going to start talking about those practical tips, which is probably really good because I figured I would run out of time in the segment 3. So let's talk about these, and I'll set you up, and then we're going to get some news you can use. So have that pencil and paper handy, or if you don't, listen to it and then watch the show later with your person with a pencil and paper so you can get down to really helping this. Okay. So first practical tip, do this week. Don't go Friday of next week on the 13th of February and say, okay, let's go ahead and do Valentine's Day. Well, I don't know about you, but for me, I've been around stores the day before Valentine's Day, and usually what I notice is the prices go way up and the pickings on the cards are slim, and they put the most expensive cards front and center. Now, maybe that's unfair, but it felt that way to me. so, so yeah, I'm watching kind of how the process of Valentine's Day happens. The other thing too, some people nowadays like to send these things like flowers through I don't know, the internet or whatever. Well, you and everybody else. So getting them on time, let's say you're sending cookies or let's say you're sending something special. Sometimes you have to hit a deadline day. We all know that if you're sending stuff over Christmas, right? Last day, if you want them there delivered by Christmas Eve. Well, it's the same thing with Valentine's Day. There can be a real rush on it, okay, on those types of things. Same thing applies with maybe going ahead and getting a reservation for a restaurant. My understanding, the most heavily used day for restaurants overwhelmingly is Mother's Day. So, especially with Mother's Day, you've got to get those reservations in or there's no room at the inn, right? That's kind of like if you want to go on spring break and you're going to a popular setting, you better book the hotel reservation early because if you don't, you may find everybody sold out. So, what are we doing? We're going to say, hey, this is Wednesday. I've got a whole 10 days now to figure out how we're going to do this well. So, that's why I'm doing my show this week. Okay. The other thing that you want to do is make sure the conversations that I'm going to talk to you about having is not emotionally charged. One of the things I mentioned is it can be a minefield, like that person wrote in. It can be because, all of a sudden, if you're asking for flowers and somebody thinks flowers are a ripoff, it's not about you being a ripoff, but it might feel like you don't matter or you're not worth it, which may not be the intention of the other person at all. But now we have a conflict. So this is where you want to slow down and be able to talk in a way where you can both really what I call accept influence, which means really slow down and listen to what your partner is saying in a way that you want to hear it, not filtered through what you think. So we start to understand before we seek to try to solve these problems, right? So we want to be very careful with not having that emotionally charged meeting because now all of a sudden we're not celebrating Valentine's Day. We're having a tug of war over who's right about how we're going to do this for Valentine's Day. Don't go there. Do not go there. This is supposed to be fun and enjoyable, and that needs to be the priority. The priority is to have fun. The priority is not to win and prevail and smush our partner's dreams or ideas about what they were going to do with you, right? So the whole idea is, hey, that person wants to spend time with you and they're celebrating you and they don't want to spend it with anybody else but you. So you want to smush that, right? So is that more important than the price of roses? Right? Is that more important than I want a dozen roses even now it crushed my partner's dream? Nah, we don't want that. No. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to slow it down and pay attention to our partner, but we're going to come to a win-win. Okay, so we're going to do the best we can with that, right? So that's where we're going to be. I am going to go ahead and take a break. And I said a minute last time. It's kind of a figure of speech. We usually break for about 2 minutes with commercials. So I'm going to be back and continue with how to make this worthwhile. So please stay tuned because this is really good information you need. Talk to you soon.
Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
All right, so let's have a good Valentine's Day, shall we? Now, I've set this up to this point. This is what I mean. So pay attention, take some notes with this, okay? So the first thing you want to do now, today, if you can, make some time. Okay, start out with a soft voice and both hands open and non-threatening and say, hey, what I'd like to do is really get together and talk about planning our Valentine's Day. What do you think? And that person might say, okay, well, let's do that. Let's say they say, well, I don't know about planning, and say, no, this is going to be fun. Why don't you? And I said, make it so it's kind of a really cool thing, kind of sell it. So next, after your partner agrees to that, one of the things you two want to get together and do, and you may have to write them down, you may have to think about it, but I want you to just ask your partner to list the 3 best Valentine's Days they've ever had and what made it so great. And you're going to do it too. Now, be careful with this because sometimes great Valentine's Days had to do with the past, and sometimes people can have bad feelings about that. Let's say you talked about a Valentine's Day you had when you were 18 with an old girl or boyfriend. Well, that may be kind of a sore subject. You don't want to go doing that, but you might want to say, hey, I remember a Valentine's Day, or once I heard of a Valentine's Day that went like that, and that sounded really good. Or, hey, one time I watched a TV show about Valentine's Day. Can't remember what it was, but it did this, and I thought it was really cool. Okay. So very, very important stuff. Talk about the 3 best you had. And then what I said, okay, those are the 3. Why were they so great? What was it about that Valentine's Day that seemed really good? Well, you know what? It was really cold and we had a big snow in and we had a party. Everybody in the neighborhood had a big Valentine's Day party. Or somebody might say, hey, I remember once when I was in 4th grade, we all gave Valentine's Days to everybody in the classroom. And oh my gosh, that was so cool. Just something that sets the tone for, wow, Valentine's Day can be really fun and cool. And both of you do it. But one of the things you both want to do is to listen to what made that special for your partner, not just you. Okay. So the other thing too is what we're doing is, from a Gottman House perspective, is we're looking at love maps. We're looking at the anticipation of bids for connection later, right? We're looking at when I had a great Valentine's Day with you, it was so amazing because now we're looking at fondness and admiration. The anticipation of a great Valentine's Day is make each other's dreams come true. And when we do it together, and it was so great when we did it together, right? That's shared meaning. So this is all building the relationship house, and that builds trust, and it builds more commitment. So you're really staying out of the conflict house, and you're really promoting building those other parts of the house. Um, there's a person, most people know him. I always say it's a purple book, sorry. There's a guy named Chapman, and he wrote a book on love languages. And a lot of people know that book, okay? And I like it. There's a lot of things in it that I like. Um, but one of the things he talks about is what kind of love language does your partner like to feel close, okay? So, how do you do that? Because sometimes that can get us into those conflicts. For example, if somebody's love language is saving money and investing it, and the other one is buying gizmos that cost a lot of money, can you see where that might start to cause a problem? Because it's not about you or them, it has more to do with their belief system. And sometimes it's connected to a lot of important things like providing for my family, keeping my family safe, keeping my marriage safe. All of those are wonderful things, but people have differing values. So without getting into conflict, you want to pay attention to what's important. And if there's a potential conflict, slow it down so that you can get to a point where there's a win-win. Okay. But you can talk about those love languages and what you like. You know, if you don't have the book nowadays, you just go online and it lists them in a page. So the point I'm saying here is this idea that's really cornerstone to the Gottman Institute, and that's accepting influence. I've mentioned this, I think, many times now, but accepting influence isn't listening to your partner and obeying them. What it means is listening to their partner to really understand where they're coming from. And then accepting influence is doing things for the greater good, right? I think I mentioned if we had one of those days where everybody got to drive however they wanted, there'd be a lot of car wrecks. Okay. Because you can't drive the wrong way down the road. But, if you have a day like, hey, I guess everybody's going to do it today, which we would never do, that would cause wrecks, right? So what we do is we accept influence. We accept that the people in the Department of Motor Vehicles really understand what safety is, and they create these roads and these rules so that we can all get home as safe as we can as soon as we can. So these people are benevolent, and what we want to do is honor that, both hands open, to accept influence to drive safely. The same thing here. We want to listen to our partner and kind of develop ideas and ways to be that really creates an idea of, hey, I had a good Valentine's Day. They did too. So that's where we're going with that. So being able to listen closely and accept the influence of your partner and pay attention to what they really like and want. Okay. Um, so now, hopefully, you both know what makes a great Valentine's Day for you both. And one of them, I think, needs to be I want to really have a wonderful time that's relaxed and not stressful and memorable with you. I want to do something with you. I want the world to revolve around us. That's really a big message you want to always have with this, okay? Okay, so that should be one on your list. If it isn't, make sure it gets there. Sometimes we get so much into what restaurant and how many flowers and all that that we forget the idea of the logistics. Like I said, same way sometimes with cards. If your idea is, oh, I guess I got to get a card. Here, this one looks red. This one's cool. You really didn't put a lot of thought and effort into it. And I'm telling you, one of the things that both of you probably are really going to pay attention to is how much your partner put effort into you, right? Back to what I said about little kids drawing a picture of us. They went into their room, they really picked just the right crayon, and they really picked just the right paper, and they really drew a picture with you smiling, and they really think of you smiling. Man, look at the bids for connection. So that's kind of what we want to do. And take a page out of those kids' books. My laughter too is, who really does this right are dogs and cats. I know people sometimes think cats don't, but my experience is they are very, very, very attuned to us and affectionate. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. Dogs, they do a dance when you come home. They can't believe you left them, and they're so happy, and they didn't think you'd ever come home. Boy, that's unconditional love. And we really should take a page out of our pet's book. Now, you don't have to jump up and down on your partner and lick their face, but you want to do the human equivalent. Okay. Because people like that too. People like the idea that something matters to them that much. The thing that needs to matter most is you, as you. So remember that. Keep that in mind. All right. Okay. So part of what you're looking at is what goes into a great Valentine's Day, but I would also shift it over to what the Valentine's Day would be like this year. So we don't just look at past ideas of victories and everything should be a victory. We should also look at what are you looking for this year? What might be fun this year? Because now you have the context of whether you're snowed in or whether or not you're going to be able to take a few days off and you're going to go somewhere together. You want to look at that. You want to look at, is this a super special one, or is this just one we're going to really be meaningful but not do a lot? It doesn't matter, right? Doesn't matter. But you two do it together. That's the most important thing. Okay. Be aware of this idea that it's the principle of the thing, and try not to take it personal. Try to accept influence of why that's so important, because at the end of that, what you want to do is you want to get to a win-win situation. Sometimes people can't get everything they want, but they should be able to get enough that when they get to the actual holiday, that they can just relax, stress-free, make a memory, hopefully remember that 10 years from now and say, hey, that was a good victory. And the other thing too is after Valentine's Day weekend, wow, we're a lot closer. Wow, that was amazing. Wow, I really like my person. So that's what we're kind of trying to get into, right? We're going to try to do that win-win scenarios, right? So once you have a template for this, one of the things I want you to do is to take and make this weekend and next week an opportunity for you both to go out and implement your plans. This is where you make the reservations. This is where you order the flowers. This is where you get the card or make the card. This is where all of that stuff's happening. And I would even give a deadline so it's all ready to go by next Wednesday. Because I'm telling you, what happens is you're going to be waiting in line or cyber line if you wait too long. And if people are hoping for these things, they can be disappointed. And what you're wanting to do is to get all of that minutia out of the way. So when the day comes in, it's just you two front and center. Okay. So same kind of thing. If you're going out to dinner, you got to watch how much you might drink, because, you might have put on a few pounds and you had a busy week. You have a couple drinks and all of a sudden you're falling asleep at 8:30 and your partner wanted to watch a movie with you and really get romantic. So you want to make sure that you're physically, as attuned as you can be to the evening that you're planning. So heads up with that. I've seen in my travels over 300 years how sometimes that kind of things can be a problem, right? The one thing I always say with this is try to imagine you're trying to get the second date. Remember back when we were dating and we really liked the person we were dating on the first date and we hoped they would go out with us again? Well, how did we behave? Well, kind of remember that. So if you're out there on Valentine's Day, make sure that all the information and conversation and attentiveness and attuneness and being interested in them, make sure that kind of feels like you're trying to get the second date for your partner. It's not phony, but it eliminates all that stuff that you wouldn't do on a first date if you were trying to get the second date. Okay. So really pay attention to all of that. Once this is over, what I want you to do is I want you to, after Valentine's Day, make a list of things that really went well. Now, you have calendars a lot of times nowadays. So what you can do is you can go out to next year's calendar, next year's Valentine's Day, set it about 10 days or 2 weeks before, and then say Valentine's Day is coming up and all the things that went well. So next time when you're coming up, you have time to plan it and you remember all of the things that really worked and maybe some of the things that could have been better. Don't get into negative or criticism or those types of things. Just, it would have been better had we planned this, or it might have been good if we had made arrangements so that, we could have fun this way or that way. Or maybe, hey, we tried this because this isn't true this year, but let's say Valentine's Day was on a Wednesday. Hey, what we should have done is just plan to do Valentine's Day over the weekend. Something that just reminds you of the things that went right and wrong. So next year you can really, really do that. Okay. So what we don't want is that cautionary tale when you start to look at this and we're disappointed from that. So we're going to take a break, and this is your assignment. Usually I have an assignment we all can do to have fun with. I just gave it to you. So what I want to do is a shout out when we come back. So come back, and I have an important shout out and something for a future show that I plan to do, but I want to talk about it. So we'll catch you in a few, and then we'll do our fourth section.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk.
Hello. Wanted to have a special section today just for you guys, and I honestly, I honestly do this because just on a human level, I know how many people really love their animals, and I happen to be one of those people. This is my new cat. He was the one that snuck in, so I thought I would show you to him. His name is Mr. Moose, and he is a wonderful kitty. He's very long, and he's a year old now, and you can tell he really likes to come into my office. But my segment isn't about him. He's kind of my newer cat. We have a kitten, but there's no way I can hold on to her to show you. But I want to do a shout out. We have had a cat for 14 years, and we had to put him to sleep on Monday. His name was PJ, and PJ was named PJ because he had a P and a J on the side of his fur. But he was amazing, and this was a picture of him about a year ago, or a half year when he was still in good health. The last 4 months of his life, we've been taking him to the vet and really investing in him to be comfortable. He wasn't necessarily going to get better, but in the last 2 weeks, he really kind of started taking a turn down, and that's why we went ahead and did the humane thing and helped him along. But if you look in the back of me, you're going to see a picture of a cat. And if you look at this cat, I don't know whether you can see it. There it is. If you look at this cat on that picture and you look at him, the reason I had that up there was because that cat looked just like PJ. So every time I did a show, I could always look behind me and see my cat. And it always gave me a lot of joy. And one of the things I want to do is promise y'all that I'll do a show on animals. You know, this show is called All About Relationships. And All About Relationships includes everything. And I was saying earlier, some of the best bids we get for connection, some of the best fondness and admiration, some of the most loyalty and the most reciprocity, we get from our animals. And they're really good role models for us if we kind of apply that to our our special people and our kids and our grandparents and everybody that just mean the world to us. And, one of the things that goes front and center for me is now that we don't have PJ is how much I miss him and how many great memories that I had with that cat over 14 years. Some of them good and some of them like, I can't believe he just did that. But most people who knew my cat would really think that he was amazing. So I wanted to share that with you all. I don't want you to necessarily think of my cat, but I want you to think of past animals that you may have had. Some of y'all may not like animals, which is fine. I hope you like something else instead. But for those of us who have had animals in the past and we've loved them and lost them, I really just wanted to share that with you and sharing your pain when you've lost them and just kind of on a human level, just share with you that. So really just wanted to do that. And he's been amazing. He doesn't usually sit with me that long, but he's doing that today. But he's been a wonderful cat and he does a lot of what I just told you, but it's different. It's not PJ. So I really think this cat's amazing and you can tell he's a big baby, but it's different. So that's what I mean by unconditional love, right? There is only one PJ, and I won't get it anymore, and I won't have him anymore. But I can sure remember the memories, and I can really share in those memories with my wife and in my mind and all of that. And then I can take this guy and make new memories, right? And he loves to play with the kitten, and I get to watch and see all the joy in that. But it isn't the last one, right? And that doesn't mean he's second fiddle or doesn't mean that he's a chopped liver. It just is different. So keep those things in mind when you're thinking about Valentine's Day and you're thinking about, all the memories you want to build, because believe me, this is a time limited thing, life. And we want to make sure we just squeeze every drop of wonderfulness. And now it's my turn to enjoy him and spend all of that time with him with good memories about PJ. So let's get back to our Valentine's Day plans. Let's get back to using this time now. Honestly, I'm saying, this thing's going to be happening in about 10 days, but we're already probably running a bit late. So make sure you have those plans down by Thursday at the latest and really start implementing what you want to do. Remember, it's the effort. It's the little things that shows your partner that you thought of them uniquely. This is what you like. Right? Think about it. When we make a birthday cake for somebody, we make a birthday cake they like, not what we like. Right? So it's those kind of things. I had a funny anecdotal for you. My dad was very practical, a wonderful person, and his birthday was Valentine's Day, and so was his dad. And I never met his father. His father died when my dad was 18, so I never met him. But 2 Valentine's days, I missed a Valentine's Day by 8 days getting born. But my dad, he didn't like to buy flowers and stuff. And we never celebrated Valentine's Day because we always celebrated his birthday. But the next day, he celebrated Valentine's Day. And what he would do is he'd go to Kroger's and he would buy the clearance flowers and he would pick out the ones that weren't very good. And then he would give my mom flowers because then he didn't have to spend a lot of money. He got a great bargain, which he really liked. And my mom liked the flowers, but we always kind of laughed about how he did it. So my father's been gone for this year is 15 years. He was gone in December of last year. And whenever I happen to go to my hometown, which isn't very often anymore, but whenever I do, I always go over if I'm going to visit the cemetery and I buy the clearance flowers at Kroger's and I pick out the bad ones and I put them on his grave. He would have loved that. So even with my dad gone, and this Valentine's Day would have been 100, I can still celebrate him and think wonderful memories. And it looks like that might be a bad one, but it wasn't. Mom liked it. He liked it. Everybody won. And it's a tradition, like I said, that I actually keep going with every time I visit. So, all right. Well, listen, folks, I gave you plenty to do. So you want to be doing that tonight and get going on it. Next week, we're going to talk about sex and Valentine's Day, but really sex in general. So come back round. We're going to have a good opportunity to talk about that. Great talking with you today. Take care of yourself. Mr. Moose says hi. And thanks for sharing my grief with my other cat. So I'm Dr. Don Allen. This is all about relationships, working towards ideal marriage and loving, lasting relationships. That's what I want yours to be. So you take care, and we will see you next week. Thank you.
While All About Relationships is educational and entertaining, it is not a substitute for therapy, counseling, or professional advice, but an informative space for learning and growth. So tune in each week for an engaging and reliable approach to your relationships, ensuring viewers with practical tools to create deeper connections in their daily lives. Whether tackling conflict resolution, emotional intimacy, or family dynamics, this show is your go-to resource for anyone looking to foster healthier, happier relationships in a supportive and lighthearted environment. Every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern.